I don't know how many people there are in this room who are good at everything that you do, but that's probably not a whole lot of us. In third grade, his name was Slater. I don't remember his first name. I think, okay, if you're in third grade and you only have one name, you really are super cool. Am I right? Like, you got Bono, right? Like, who you got Cher? Like, who else just has one name? Who? Zane? Sting. Oh, I was like, Zane, I don't know him. Sting, right. Sting, there's one. There you go. Sting's cool. Like, who else? Oprah, right. Like, okay, she has a last name, but no, you don't need it anymore. If you're going by one name, like as a 9-year-old though, listen, homeboy can bring it. Am I right? Like, this kid was good at everything he did. So Slater was always the first one. We'd be in third and fourth grade combined recess. And fourth graders were picking Slater in their first round. Now, if you're a third grader and you're getting picked above all other fourth grade boys, like, you're a stinking stud. So I hated him. Not really. It was all jealousy. But I'm just saying, like, the type of people like that are very few. Would you agree? Like, you can probably remember the people who are really good at everything that they did. There's some people who don't have to study, and they always got A's on their test. How many of you guys know somebody like that? And you hate them too, right? You feel me, right? Or I was one of those guys, I didn't have to study, and I would get B's, which was good enough. But if I wanted A's, I did have to study. But there are people who don't have to study. They get A's. There are people who, they pick up ping pong, and then like 2 days later, they're winning the tournament. Not that there's, because all those ping pong tournaments we all go to. I'm just saying, like if they try out a new sport, they're really good at it. Like, they're Jimmy Pelkey in middle school. Jimmy Pelkey was awesome at everything. Like, it was disgusting. He was great at basketball, great at football, great at everything. Like, the PE teacher would say, okay, here's the new sport. And you knew Jimmy Pelkey was going to do great at it. He did good at everything. And then in high school, I was a senior, and it was a 9th grader. His name was Micah Gatier, and Micah was awesome at everything. He gets out of high school, doesn't go to college. He starts working at a carpet cleaning business. And like, before he's even 21, he buys the carpet cleaning business from his boss. Then he franchises it. He takes it, moves it over into the stock market, trades it as a penny stock, makes a crap ton of money, sold out, and then started another carpet company. I hate Micah Gatier. I don't hate Micah Gatier. He's an awesome. I'm just saying, but the Micah Gatiers, the Jimmy Pelkeys, the Slaters of the world are by far the minority. What hope do the rest of us have at winning in life? Like, I don't think that only those type of people should get to the end of their life and go, that was a phenomenal ride. I wouldn't change anything about it. But wouldn't we say that that's what a successful life is? And it might not have anything to do with the total amount in your checkbook. It might not have anything to do with the age in which you retire. But all of us want to get to the end of our life and go, I did it right. I want my kids to say, Dad did it right. I want my wife to say, my husband got it right. I want my friends to say, Sean did it right. I want my brother someday to say that. I just don't want to do all of the things that are necessary between now and then to get him to say that necessarily. But who here doesn't want to be good at life? You want to be good at your job? You want other people to say that you're good at your job? Like, I hope you do. Like if there's nothing in you that wants to do life good, then there really is something deep down inside that's broken, and you really do need to talk to somebody about that. Because I think that God puts that desire to do good, to do it right, to be awesome in all of us. I think that there's parts of our life where we get discouraged because it didn't go awesome and we become depressed. And then we don't care. But I think that we'd recognize that the reason why we don't care anymore is because we've lost hope that we'll ever get good at it, and so we just quit. But even that depression or that sadness that you feel right now came from your disappointment over not being good at whatever it is that was broken and didn't go well. So that would still come from that same place that motivates us to want to be good at life. What kills me more than anything else that's not true. When I say, hey, there's only 2 types of people. Okay, there's probably more than 2 types of people. Hey, you know what kills me more than everything? Okay, there's probably something that kills me more than this. But when any one of my kids say, I don't want to do that because I'm not any good at it, that kills me. Like I die a little bit on the inside. Like I don't want to do that, I'm not getting good at it. I don't want to draw, I'm not good at drawing. I don't want to play that, I'm not very good at it. I don't want to do, well, of course you're not very good at it. Because you've what? Never done it before. Right? Like that, like I don't want them to feel like they have to naturally be good at everything when they start something, or they'll quit everything they ever start, because very few of us will ever be good when we start. But we feel somehow in the back of our mind that that's the way it's supposed to be. So 2 years into our marriage, when we absolutely can't stand each other, we feel like we married the wrong person, and we didn't. We just thought that 2 years in, we would automatically be great at marriage. But nobody ever got a great marriage who didn't have to work their butt through years of hating each other to get there. Or is that just my marriage? But legitimately, there have been times in our marriage, like months at a time, where I was like, I am 100% convinced I married the wrong chick. But because divorce was not an option, I really did feel like I'm going to be this unhappy for the rest of my life. So one day we're counseling a couple who are at that place. They're in our living room, and my wife is trying to encourage them. She goes, there were times in our marriage, and she's trying to encourage them. But she's like, I'm there too. She goes, there were times in our marriage where I knew we were never going to get a divorce because it was something that we were both desperately against, but I was so unhappy. I was just secretly wishing that Sean would die. I went, and she went, she goes, I can't believe I said that out loud. I was like, oh my word, how long have you been thinking that? And she goes, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, it's okay. I thought the exact same thing. And it's not like I wanted her to die a slow, painful death, like of 1,000 bee stings or anything like that. Wow, that idea came to mind real quick. But if it's like a car accident, like a real, but she doesn't feel anything. Just like one moment she's alive, the next moment she's in the presence of God and out of the presence of my life. That would be wonderful. Now, you're laughing because you might have actually thought the same thing, too. We all go through that. And you feel like you're going to be this unhappy for the rest of your life, or you're going to be this happy for the rest of your life. And however you feel right now, I've said this before, we kind of feel like that's the way it's always going to be, and it's not. There's things that we can do. There's attitudes and behaviors that shape where our lives are going to go beyond where they're at. That's what we're talking about today. What attitudes and behaviors do I need to get to a better place than where I'm at? You don't win at anything because you are good at it. You win at things because you worked hard to become good at it. Does this make sense? So what are those attitudes, and what do you want to be successful in? Don't say life, it's too generic. Because I think you just say, I want to be successful at life. I want to be successful in love. I think that's so vague. It's not a target you can hit. Hit the target. Well, where is the target? It's over in that direction somewhere. You're not going to hit it. You need to be able to see clearly what it is you want to hit if you have any shot of nailing it. So name it. What do you want to be successful in? And I don't think there's just one. I want to be, since this is the thing that God has me in right now, I want to be a successful pastor, however the scriptures define what success is for a pastor. I want to be successful as a dad. And in my mind, I know clearly what that looks like. I want to be successful as a husband. And I know what that target looks like because I've seen so often what it isn't. Right? So sometimes I know what I'm supposed to be by getting rid of all the stuff I'm not supposed to be. Right? I know that truthfully what's most broken in my marriage is more often me than her. And even if it is her, like most of the time, it is her. But I can't change that. There's only one person that I can work on. But genuine success will be defined by three different things. Genuine success. Genuine success is, and already here's the three things. Genuine success is lasting. Genuine success is defined not by winning this game, and genuine failure isn't losing the next game. Genuine success is getting to the end of this season having won the championship, and there'll be wins and losses along the way. Right? There'll be fumbles and interceptions, but dang it, success is scoring the touchdown. Not every incomplete pass means that I've lost in life, because I still got options. It's only second down. It's only third down. Matthew chapter 7, Jesus said that there are two types of people that are going to be building their lives. And truthfully, the lives that they build might not even look that different from each other. He says, those who hear these teachings of mine and then put them into practice and actually do what I say are like those who build their house on a rock. And those who hear these teachings of mine and choose not to adjust their life or their behaviors or their attitudes in response to it are building their house on sand. And truthfully, until the storm comes, you can't tell the difference between the two from the outside. Both of those lives might look completely identical. The only difference between the two lives that are being built is what happens to them when the storms come and the floods rise. And he doesn't guarantee that anybody will avoid any storms or that nobody will ever suffer through a flood. In fact, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus infers that all of us go through the same number of storms, the same number of floods. The difference between those whose lives are centered around the teachings of God in the Bible and those who aren't is what happens to them. It's not whether or not they can have a happy marriage. It's not whether or not they can provide for their family. It's what happens to them when the poop hits the fan. That's the difference. Both look the same until the storm comes. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 3 says, wickedness never brings stability, but the godly have deep roots. It goes deep, man. That tree ain't falling over. No matter how bad that hurricane is, it ain't falling. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 17, stolen bread tastes sweet, but it turns to gravel in the mouth. See, I think sometimes when it comes to success, we're willing to bend the rules or cut corners to get there. And what Proverbs says is that it still tastes just as sweet, but truthfully, it doesn't last. That taste doesn't stay there. If you cheated your way to it, eventually that cupcake will turn to sand in your mouth. It's not lasting. There's a right way and a wrong way to get success. And at the beginning, they might look completely identical, but they don't stay that way. The second thing that genuine success is that genuine success is satisfying. There's contentment on the inside. It has to do with way that it affects you on the inside. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 6 says, better to be poor and honest than to be dishonest and rich. See, there's another passage of Scripture where it talks about the amount of our wealth and its corresponding relation to our lack of sleep and peace. And see, I would say that success isn't just being able to provide for my family's needs and having a little bit of extra cushion. That's probably how we would, as far as financially, we would probably find some common ground around that definition. But I think that you can be successful in life and be poor. I don't think you have to be wealthy in order to be successful. I don't think you have to be well known. I don't think you have to be respected by a great number of people. I think that you can be anonymous to history and still be a success in life. And maybe that's something that you need to wrestle with a little bit, because maybe you can't see how that's possible. But truthfully, name anybody who died more than 30 years ago whose life individually matters to you, and there's very few people. Like, I wouldn't exist without my great-grandfather, but I don't know anything about him, and I honestly don't care much. He has no real connection to me. And truthfully, my great-grandkids won't remember me either. Like, I'm not going to be famous. And even if I was, what good does that do to me? Like, if I'm remembered 50 years after I'm dead, will I even care? I'm dead. I think that we're in danger of spending our entire lives climbing whatever ladder we feel like we need to climb to be successful. And I think the danger is that we get to the end of our life and find out that the ladder was leaned against the wrong wall the entire time. The sad thing is that apart from wisdom that I believe comes from God's word, all of us are in danger of leaning our ladder against the wrong walls. Especially if we allow other people who are not rooted in Scripture to define what success looks like for us. Because I know what success looks like as defined by those around us, those who don't share biblical values. And that's that I have a lot of money and am known by a lot of people. But you know people who are wealthy and people who are famous who are miserable. Maybe you don't know them, but we know of them. Their marriages fall apart just as much as anybody else's. They struggle with drug addiction and alcohol addiction as much as any. The percentages probably aren't any different. In fact, they might even be higher over on that side of the economic aisle. Are you with me? Does this make sense? You know people who were successful in life that nobody's ever heard of. To me, the definition of a successful life, this is how I've defined it. I think you need to define it. What does it look like to live a successful life? It's getting to my deathbed and looking back with only a handful of regrets. If I can count the number of big regrets on one hand, some of us might go, all right, I'm already on toes by now. And if that, whatever, I'm just saying, like I want to look back and say to myself that I wouldn't change anything. I want to die with my family around. I don't want to have anything unsaid that needed to be said. That's. I don't want the applause of men. I want the applause of heaven. I told you this before. I want my guardian angel to start that 80s slow clap in the background when I walk across the pearly gates. They're all silent, man. He did it right. And my angel's like, dang it. And he was a moron too. Let's give it up. Right? That to me is, and it has nothing to do. Now along the way, I want to be able to provide for my family. Along the way, I don't want to be desperate for a job in my retirement. Like I don't know that I'll ever stop working. But I do hope that there's an age where I don't have to in order to eat food the next day. I do hope that. I do. But that isn't what defines success. So it's satisfying. That, like genuine success is felt on the inside, not measured on the outside. Would you agree with that? That's the second thing that's genuine success. It's lasting, it's satisfying. I believe that it's also both temporal and eternal. It's earthly and eternal. Matthew chapter 16, verse 26, Jesus said, "What does it profit you if you gain the entire world but lost your soul? What good have you honestly ultimately gotten if you nail the next 70 years by everybody else's estimation, but you've ruined the rest of forever for you? If you spent eternity separated from God, if eternity is a line with, extended arrows on both sides, my line has an extended arrow only on one side because there's a dot where my life on that line started. And that dot is measured by years. This line is immeasurable. That's eternal. That's what makes us different from animals. We're creating the image of God. We're both physical and spiritual. And sadly, I think a lot of us are trading the line to have a more comfortable dot. And I think that's foolish. Wouldn't we gladly, in the scheme of eternity, trade everything about this dot to make sure that everything about this line that doesn't stop freaking rocks? See, that's the difference between wisdom and foolishness. It's what you do when you get the $100 right when you get it. Do you go spend it or do you save some of it? Do you invest it? You see what I'm saying? The fool spends everything he gets. The wise would invest, preparing for the line. Are you with me? Proverbs chapter 11, verse 4, riches won't help on the day of judgment, but right living will save you from death. So if genuine success is lasting, it's satisfying, it's earthly, and it's successful in light of eternity, how do we actually get there? And the word I'm going to give you is a big word, and I don't intentionally, it's not because I don't read. I intentionally don't use a whole lot of big words every weekend, not because I'm discounting anybody's intelligence, but I want to be able to, we have middle schoolers all the way up, and I don't want to lose anybody anytime we ever speak here at Grace Church. So the way that we get there is through this word diligence. Diligence is not a word that probably you've used this past week or this past month at all. But the definition of diligence is taking a lot of little steps in the same direction for a long time. It's little steps in the same direction for a long time. That's diligence. There's a book I'm reading right now. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's not a Christian book. It's a business book, and it's called The Compound Effect. And he talks about the difference between making little changes but keeping those little changes long term. You know how you get your 10-year sobriety pin? By saying no to alcohol 3,650 days in a row. We're looking for the large chunk success, and nobody gets to the large chunk. I want my 10-year pin now. No, you don't get your 10-year pin now. I want to be rich now. No, you don't get to be rich now. I want a healthy marriage. I want a successful marriage now. No, you don't get a healthy marriage now. You freaking work for it. I want to be skinny now. No. Yes, I do. But no, I can't have it. Why? Because the world does not revolve around Sean. Sean's got to freaking earn it like everybody else. That's diligence. I want to be muscular. To go work out. I've been working out for like 3 weeks and nothing's happening. Man, I tried for a whole month. That's not diligence. Right? That's playing the lotto. You bought a scratch ticket and you didn't win, so you gave up. You tried. You tried to serve your spouse for a month and it didn't work, so you're giving up on it. See, we play the lottery with marriage. We play the lottery with our careers. We play the lottery with our kids. None of us are willing to put in the work that it takes to actually be great at whatever it is God's put you into. You don't get skinny overnight. You don't get rich overnight. You don't become happily married overnight. You don't graduate college overnight. You don't get your dream job overnight. You got to put in work. That's diligence. I heard it said it takes 15 years to become an overnight success. Right? Like Steph Curry comes on the scene, we're like, holy cow, where'd this kid come from? He's awesome. You want to look at the number of weekends that boy gave up in AAU his entire life to become that? Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Outliers. And he talks about that small percentage of people who are great, like the Steve Jobs, the Zuckerbergs, I'm running out of names. The Harrison Fords, I don't know, whatever. And there's that 10,000 hour principle that he talks about, that it takes 10,000 hours of doing anything well to become an expert at it. 10,000. He talked about Michael Jordan is what he used that illustration also. And it's Michael like that. It's famous that he got cut from his high school basketball team as a 10th grader and what he did with that. And you know, what you do in response to your first divorce determines the success of the relationship you're about to begin. And I mean, I think there's a lot of different principles, but it's that 10,000 hour principle to be great at something. We overestimate what we can do in 1 year, and we underestimate what we can do in 5 years. I heard a pastor talk about it's the difference between a glacier and an avalanche. The avalanche makes a whole lot more noise and is a whole lot more spectacular, but a year from now, nobody notices the avalanche. The glacier moves slowly, but it permanently and forever alters the terrain. Which do you want to be? You want to be a glacier, you want to be an avalanche. The avalanche is like flash paper. Whew, gone. Right? Versus the bond, like, I don't know where I was going with that, but versus the fire that changes. Makes a difference. Now, what I'm about to wrap it up with is 6 traits of a wise person that lives their life in this way. And we're going to be looking at some Proverbs that talk about becoming successful in life, becoming successful in marriage, becoming successful as a follower of God, becoming successful as a parent, becoming successful as a roommate, as a boyfriend, as a girlfriend, as a high school student or middle school student, as an athlete. But I want you to remember that these are proverbs. They're not promises. They're general principles. Out of 100 cases, 95 times it goes this way. 90 times it goes this way. But there are always exceptions. These are generalities. Taylor brought up last week in the first week in this series that train up a child in the way he should go. And we all know somebody who was raised to go right that went wrong. So that it's not that God failed on his promise. It was never a promise. It's a generality. That our environment shapes the direction that we go, and those who pour into us and help us define what good and evil are, what right and wrong are, generally shape the way we see the world as either being right or wrong. But it's not a promise. It's a principle. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 30 and 31 says, "No human wisdom or understanding or plan can stand against God." So listen, ultimately, whatever plans you have, truthfully, that make all the plans you want, but ultimately, if God's got something going on, you're not going to buck that. All right? It's just not going to happen. And he said that I have a job, though. Verse 31, "The horse is prepared for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord." My job is to make sure that my horse is ready to bring it. That's my only job. My job isn't the outcome. My job is the obedience we talked about in our last series. My job is to get the horse ready. It ain't the outcome of the whole battle. I've got one part to play, dang it, and I better stinking play it. I just need to prepare what I can prepare for. I can't control her, but I can get my horse ready. I can get my horse healthy. Are you with me? Does this make sense? I can't control what the markets will do, but I can control whether or not I budget below my financial capacity so that I've got the margin to put into savings. So I've got the margin to put God first. So I've got the margin to be generous towards others. So I've got the margin to provide for my family. There are things that I can do. I can't control whether or not there's layoffs at my company, but I can control whether or not I've prepared for that. Does this make sense? My job is to get the horse ready for battle. But the victory in battle doesn't belong to me. 6 traits of a wise person. Number 1 is that they write their goals in pencil. They write their goals in pencil. In Romans chapter 15, Paul, the Apostle Paul, said, "I'm going to go to Spain, and on my way to Spain, I plan to stop off in Rome to visit you in person and to make sure that you're growing in your relationship with God." But if you know the Bible, you might not. Did Paul ever make it to Spain, yes or no? No. It's all right, he got it wrong. He still had plans. He was making moves. But he wrote them in pencil. When God adjusted the plan and he went to Ephesus and decided to go to Jerusalem instead, even though he was told by others that if you go to Jerusalem, it'll end badly for you, he could have headed off to Spain and he didn't. I'm just saying he wrote his plans in pencil. I think that's what wise people do. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5, "Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty." Have a plan, but write it in pencil. You're not the author of your life. You're not the captain of your ship if you're a follower of God. That's not your role. You can't control everything. You can control some things, So write it in pencil. I remember that when I was 28 years old, I was a youth pastor in Denver, Colorado, and Jason Penna came up to me and he was just on fire for God. Just like, I just don't, like, what does God want to do with me? I was like, well, what do you want to do with your life? He goes, I want to be a plumber. Like, that's awesome. So let's just pretend that a plumber was the one person that God got everything out of that he could possibly have squeezed out. Like, I don't want any gas left in the tank when I die. Does that make, I don't want to have any extra energy in there that I didn't spend. Like, on the day I die, let that be the same day as my gas tank runs empty. Are you with me? Like, I don't want any slack on the line when I get into heaven. I want to have reached every, like Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10 says that we are God's workmanship created for a set of experiences, good deeds that he prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Ephesians chapter 2 says that there is a preferred life that God intended me to live. D.L. Moody, sorry to bring him up, because if you're not familiar with church history, you don't know who that guy is, but he's a very famous preacher who lived during the time of the Civil War and preached all over the world, made a huge Moody College, and there's a plaque on a wall next to the government center downtown, next to the State House, that just says, on this spot, D.L. Moody, the great Christian evangelist and preacher, was converted to become a follower of Jesus. That plaque is still there right now on State Street, by the way. Just like that guy made a difference, and he said before he died, he said, the world has still yet to see what God can do with one man who totally sells out to him. Dear God in heaven, let me be that dude. If the world is still yet to see one dude who spent every drop of gas before he died, I want to run out of gas on the day I die. But let's say that the guy that God gets to do everything that he ever planned with was a plumber. What does that look like, Jason? He's like, I don't know. I said, let's just say at the end of his life, he's the guy that God did more with than anybody else as far as capacity, potential. So it's not like he did quantifiably, measurably more. He's like, of somebody's 100% capacity, God gets all 100% of yours, and you only got 95% of Billy Graham. But let's say he gets 100% of you. What does that look like at the end? And so, I don't know what happens in your 20s. Okay, in your 20s, you become an apprentice, then you become a master, and then you start your own company. That's great. Okay, in your 30s, what happens then? I think in my 30s, I would probably train somebody else to hand that off. I said, great, so that you could do what? He goes, I don't know. I said, what's in your heart? He's like, well, like India. I'm like, awesome. So then you go to India, and then you partner up with a Bible college there who maybe, I'm just telling you, this is a conversation that lasted hours with me and Jason, who was like 17 years old. And I'll just tell you, if you don't mind, for the sake of time, let me just get to the end. In his 20s, he gets his master's license and he starts his own company as a plumber. In his 30s, he franchises it and hands it off so that he could go to India and partner with a Bible college and take Indian Bible college pastors into remote villages to start churches. But to bring value to those community, he built wells for them and showed them how to do irrigation as a plumber. And he did this for all of his 30s. And in his 40s, he grabbed the attention of the government, who then asked him to help them change the way that they did fresh water and irrigation for the rest of the country, which opened up more doors for the gospel all over India. And in his 50s, like he's like on a president's panel. He's in his 60s, the entire nation of India has become devoted followers of God through faith in Jesus Christ, through a freaking plumber. Now write it in pencil. But freaking write it. It was talking to Jason. I was like, I haven't even done this for my life. What if I'm that guy? What does that look like? I know what it looks like. I need an education, though. Why? Because I will need to write youth ministry. I want to be a youth pastor for the day. I want to be that 65-year-old dude who's still planning like overnight like parties and like hay rides and like not in a creepy way because that'd be old. But I'm just I want to be that cool old dude, right? Who's doing paintball as a 65-year-old guy. That's what I wanted to be. I want to be that guy. So in my 30s, I started off, I got a master's degree in education. I started writing youth ministry curriculum while being a youth pastor. I started teaching at a Bible college, training other youth pastors how to be youth pastors while still writing curriculum. Maybe in my 40s, I would start a church in Boulder, Colorado, while writing curriculum for Group Magazine, for Group Publishing, on all kinds of apologetic type issues, like reasons to believe for people who aren't religious. That's always been my passion, for people who are far from God, helping them eliminate the intellectual barriers to faith, because that was where I struggled in my early 20s. And then in my 40s, Mike would start a church in Boulder, but all the time I'm still writing curriculum. So I got my master's degree in education and curriculum development, and then ended up getting an opportunity to start to develop a youth ministry curriculum from scratch at a Bible college here in Boston. So it's because I wrote in pencil that I didn't stay in Denver and then end up starting a church in my 40s in Boulder. But I moved to Boston, and my neighbors, when I was 35, asked us to start a Bible study that became a church. I'm just saying, none of that would have ever happened had I not sat down and wrote an actual plan in pencil. Now, I wrote it in pencil so God could change it. But I had direction from my life the day I wrote it. Are you with me? Write your plans in pencil. Number 2, get wise counsel. Why? Because you need a reality check. Okay? Sometimes we're like, I'm going to be a millionaire when I'm 25. Whoa, hold up, killer. All right, get wise counsel. Proverbs 15, verse 22, plans go wrong for lack of advice. Many advisors bring success. But get advice from the right people. Proverbs 14:7, stay away from fools, for you won't find knowledge on their lips. Like, I know he's got more experience because he's had more marriages, but you should not take his advice on how to do your marriage. Are you with me? Get the right advice from the right people. You're about to buy a house? Get advice, get counsel. You're redoing your budget? Get advice, get counsel. What is it? You're about to get married? You're about to pick a college? You're about to pick a career? You're about to start dating somebody. Like, all of these things matter. Listen, you're going to marry somebody you date, so only date somebody you would marry. Date smart or marry stupid. Tweet that. Number 3, put first things first. I don't have the time. You've seen the jar where they take out the big rocks and the little rocks and then the sand and the water. Can all this fit in here? Oh, no. Or they take the rocks and they pour them in the bottle. And they say, is this full? And they're like, yeah, that's full. No, it's, and then they take out the little rocks. Oh, is it full? Yeah, it's full. And then they take out the sand. And they fill, it's like, yeah, this is full. And they're like, oh, definitely sand. Then they take out the water and then it fills up. But none of that would happen if you didn't put it in the right order first. You've got to decide what the big rocks are. And don't tell me God's first in your life if he ain't the first rock. Are you with me? You're either going to listen, you either live on purpose or you waste your life on accident. You want to waste your life? Wing it. You want to get it right? Nobody got it right who wasn't working a stinking plan to make it right. They knew what a good marriage looked like, and they knew what they were doing wrong, so they knew what to change. Put first things first. Proverbs 20, verse 4. Those too lazy to plow in the right season will have no food at the harvest. Put first things first. I want to eat. Well, did you plow? Like, I want to retire. Well, did you start investing in your 20s? No. Sorry, you can't retire. What's first? Get it right. You want a healthy marriage? Start handling yourself in a godly way as a single person. And set yourself up for a better chance at success in marriage later. Some of you as single people right now are sabotaging your future marriage and you don't even know it. You're living like a moron because you ain't handling it godly. You are adding emotional ghosts that your future spouse is going to have to fight with for the rest of their life. You see what I'm saying? Put the big rocks in now. What's the big rocks? Number 4, stop, look, and listen. I already read Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5, but it says, hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. Evaluate, stop, often stop. Am I doing this right? Is it going the direction I want? Is this a healthy relationship? If it's not, back out now. Don't keep dating them because you're afraid to be alone. I'd be more afraid to be married to a moron for the rest of my life than being alone. Poor Billie Jane, she didn't have a choice. That's my wife. She's married to a moron. Number 5, work hard but not too hard. Work hard but not too hard. Because the goal of life is not work. It's a means to an end. It's not the end. Success is above average because so few are willing to work hard to get it. Most marriages are not healthy because most people are not willing to put in the work to have one. It's just true. If half of marriages end in divorce, of the ones that stayed together, how many of them are happy? Most people are not physically fit, because most people don't want to do the work. Most people are not financially healthy because most people are not willing to say no. So they say yes to Visa instead. That's why the average person in America spends 104% of their income. Because we're not willing to do the work. We don't want to say no to immediate gratification, even if that means long-term gratification and satisfaction later. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 29 says to get good at what you're doing or to do something else. Proverbs 23, 4 and 5. Don't wear yourself out trying to get rich, but be wise enough to know when to quit. In the blink of an eye, wealth disappears, for it will sprout wings and fly away. And if all of your hope is on your money, trust me, God's going to yank that rug out at some point just to show you, if you're his kid, you've been hoping on the wrong thing. And number 6, do whatever you're doing for the glory of God, or it doesn't count. Remember the dot and the line? You know who shapes the line? My relationship with God. That's the quality of the line. It's all about what I did on this dot for his glory and for the good of others in his name. That's it. Those are the keys to success. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3, commit your actions to the Lord and your plans will succeed. God, this is for you and your glory. You know what God will do? It's like the little kid who comes in and says, Mom, I want to make scrambled eggs. Okay, let me do it with you. Okay, Mommy, would you help me make scrambled eggs? And the kids think that they're making the scrambled eggs all by themselves, but the mom, when the kid isn't looking, is pulling out the eggshells that they left in the pan. Right? So that thing tastes right, and they get it all done. Oh, you did such a good job, sweetheart. But we know who was in charge of that. Who was it? It was Mama. That's what we do. We commit our plans to God. God, I'm going to write this in pencil, and I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to get godly advice. I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to remember it ain't about the work. It's about what that brings me. But ultimately, God, if this isn't the direction that you want me to go in, none of this is going to matter anyway. I want what you want for my life more than anything else. Listen, if you plan to become emotionally healthy, then that's a big rock, and you're going to have to plan for it. You want to grow spiritually in your relationship with God, then you really are going to need to get into relationship with other followers of Jesus here at Grace Church, like in a life group. If you want to become financially healthy, you really are going to have to order your finances according to God, and you really are going to have to put God first in your finances. These are the big rocks. We're just not willing to say no to everything else in order to say yes to what matters most. So we get what everybody else gets because we've been doing what everybody else does. And then we blame all that crap on God. When truthfully, we're just reaping what we sowed. But you can sow different. You can do it different. Let's pray. God, none of us have to settle. None of us do. We can, every single one of us, experience the life you had planned for us before the day that we were even conceived, but we won't get that on accident. Nobody gets an above average life who didn't have to make above average choices to get there, and we're not the exception. God, don't let our life be proof that if we're not intentional, we'll waste it. Use us, inspire us, move us on the inside to do whatever it takes to make this marriage, the one that we're in right now, work. Help us as single people to make wise and godly choices in our singleness. Help us to become the kind of person we want to marry would actually want to marry. God, help us to be pure, help us to be godly, help us to be holy, help us to be selfless, help us to be generous. But we're not going to accidentally be any of those things. Nothing good, truly good in life comes without sacrifice and work. God, move us in our heart to make the adjustments that we need to move to where we need to move based on where we're at right now. And I can't do that. I don't know where everybody else is right now. I don't know what they're struggling with. I don't know where their sinful patterns and behaviors are. You know all of that. I just pray that we would confess. Let your Holy Spirit speak into each one of our hearts and show us the thing that's most broken and move us in our heart enough to call out to you for forgiveness in that area. Help us to realign our lives so that we too can be wise. Let us rearrange our lives according to the Scriptures. Bring us to a place where we'll confess our sin, We'll seek reconciliation with those we've become dysfunctional with. That we will serve selfish people. That we will be generous to the stingy people. That we'll look for people whose needs are unmet in ways that we can meet them. Help us to live, love, give, and serve the way Jesus lived, loved, gave, and served, because honestly, that's the only way any of us will get to the end of our life and we'll look back and say that we did it right. That's success. Give us all success, God, in the name of your Son, Jesus, I ask this. Amen.